1. Years ago. Man, I'm old. But let's say mid-1990s. I worked as a woodland firefighter in the Army Reserves. I worked as a spotter, basically. I was stationed in a giant fire tower in the middle of a national park. My job was just as it sounds. I would use binoculars and look out for fire, smoke, other telltale signs of fire. My nearest compadre was 5 miles or so from me. My days consisted of working my shift, taking long walks around the fire tower, being on the lookout for anyone who might be having illegal fires, looking out for wildlife and staying afoot of bears and wolves. The way our shifts worked back then was 1 week on, 1 week off. So we slept in the towers, cooked our food, etc. There were nearby toilets and showers for our use. One day I came across an illegal bear trap. I had several ranger friends, and I safely set off the trap, then picked it up to take it to the ranger station on one of my treks out for food in my jeep. Poaching is illegal in the park and carried a big fine even back then, and some jail time, but it did not stop the poachers from trying. I heard rifle shots and headed back to my fire tower. We did have a rifle in the tower to be used in case of emergencies. Just a few months back, a fellow spotter had been mauled to death by a grizzly, so each tower had been outfitted with a rifle. I looked with my binoculars, but did not see anything out of the ordinary. I radioed my co-worker, Ben, an older guy in the adjacent tower. He hadn't heard anything today, but he came across a few traps himself. That night, after a dinner of franken beans and toast, I was writing to my future wife when I heard the rumbling of a truck. Thinking it may be Ben, occasionally he made the trek over. We would crack open a soda and chew the fat for a bit. Instead, I saw 4 men with rifles get out of the truck. One looked around and leaned up against the truck, while the other 3 grabbed traps and began to set them up. I grabbed the rifle and my lantern and headed down the stairs. I was only 21, a farmer's son from a rural Virginia farming town, and even with 1 deployment behind me, I was naive. I should have called it in to the Rangers, but instead I thought I could talk some sense into these 4 dangerous men. I barely got a "hey, what are you doing?" out of my mouth before I was roughly shoved by rough hands. My lantern fell, and I heard it crack. The rifle was kicked away from me, and I felt the breath leave my chest when I was violently kicked in the stomach. I barely had caught my breath when I was grabbed by 2 of the men and was shoved forward into the woods. It seemed like we walked for miles, but in reality, it was probably only a mile. However, I noticed that there were no sounds. In the forest it is rarely silent. It's a cacophony of sounds even at night. Owls, the wolves, crickets, but in this night, nothing. Suddenly I was shoved onto my knees and I felt hot tears well up. I thought of my parents, my little sister and brother, and my fiancé who were back home in Virginia. I heard the rack of a gun and I shut my eyes and prayed. Suddenly the night erupted. However, it was the sound of sirens, those of the forest rangers, and behind them in his pickup, Ben, who had also tried to radio me that he heard a car's engine and came to my tower when I didn't reply. The poachers were arrested. Ben drove me back to the tower. I was still shaking. He didn't lay into me for not following procedure, just said, "That was close, kid." I ended up leaving the job months later to take a job closer to home, but I never ran into any more poachers during the rest of my time. I kept in contact with Ben for a while, sent him a wedding invite, and then a photo of my firstborn son in 1997. However, as time does, we lost track of one another, and a few years back I googled him. He would have been 75 or so, to discover he passed away a few years back. Don't know whatever came of those poachers, but I know I never want to meet them again. 2. In 2014, I moved to England from Canada to gain work and travel experience, and also to find myself. I ended up living in Essex with 3 other roommates. They were all women, all a bit older than I was. I was 24 at the time. Megan was 31, Cherry was 34, and Cassie was 38. Megan was from New York, Cherry from New Jersey, and Cassie from Poland. All 4 of us shared this 3-story flat. The back of our home was the living room and kitchen. The back wall was complete glass that looked out into the garden. The garden was completely fenced in. The house had an interesting dynamic, to say the least. Tons of stories from that time in my life. I adored all my roommates except for Cherry. After living with Cherry for 7 months, I was over her antics. One day I came home from work. I locked the door, make myself something to eat, and go up to bed. I brought some work home with me, so I am in my nightie with all these papers around me, and my headphones on, jamming out. I had headphones on because Cherry was out to dinner with work friends. That meant booze, and then soon after that a tantrum was surely to come. I just didn't want to have to listen to her crazy scream crying. I'm working away, completely focused until I feel something. I look up to see a man standing over me. I don't register it right away and passively say, "Cherry's room is on the 2nd floor," and continue to work. Cherry regularly brought strange men home. He doesn't leave, again. "Cherry's room is downstairs, you..." He then interrupts. "I'm not here for Cherry." A cold chill iced my veins. My fight or flight kicked in just then. I start surveying the situation. I look him up and down. He has a bottle of Prosecco in one hand and a knife in the other. He's about 5'10", wild, muddy, brown hair and black eyes. He has a light blue polo shirt, and one side of his collar is popped up in a distinct Manchester accent. Once I focused in, I realized his eyes were black because his pupils were completely dilated. Shit, I was in trouble. I needed an escape plan. Unfortunately, this man was standing in between me and my bedroom door. I needed to get downstairs, but I needed for him to think it was his idea. I decided to play along. Just then, he uses his knife to pop the cork. Prosecco starts flowing onto my carpet. I said, "Oh no, let's clean that up. I prefer to drink out of a proper flute anyways." He nodded, replying, "Yeah, you're a proper classy bird, let's go." I try to act as natural as possible. I try not to show that I am shaking all over, and try to gain control over my breathing. We take the long journey down to the main floor of my flat, all 3 floors. He has the back of my nightie all bunched up in one hand, and I could feel the point of the knife graze my back with his other. I was trying to playfully speak with him as we walked down the stairs. I couldn't tell you what I was saying. I was most likely rambling. I couldn't hear anything over my heart beating in my ears. We get to the bottom of the stairs, and there is a hallway to my left that leads to the front door. On my right, which is much closer to us, is the kitchen and living room. We make our way into the kitchen. I point to the cabinets that had the wine glasses. He said he knew where they were and starts towards them. I now had the kitchen table between us. It was time to run. I burst into a sprint down the hallway towards the door. My hands fumble over the lock, shaking and sweating. I swing the door open and see 2 men walking across the street. They must have been walking home from the train. There was a big train station in front of our home. I call out to them for help, and suddenly I am flung onto the ground. Little pebbles piercing my skin sent sharp pains where they jabbed. The intruder pushed me out of the way to run and escape. One of the men chased after the intruder, while the other said for me to go inside while he surveyed my home and to call the police. I locked all the doors, and I called the police. While I'm on the phone with dispatch, I maniacally run around the house to double-check all the windows and doors. Suddenly, I hear a loud bang on my door. I inform the dispatch of the banging, and she informs me the police weren't there yet. I thought it might be one of the gentlemen who helped me. I go to look out the eye hole, and it's him, the intruder. He came back. He's banging on my door, screaming that I had his glasses and that he was not done with me. I absolutely freak out. The dispatcher attempts to calm me down, but I am losing my ever-loving mind. She then said, "They're pulling onto your street now. You should hear the sirens." I did, thank God. The intruder then blasts off. One officer jumps out of the passenger side while the car is still moving and chases after him. The second officer comes into my home, interviews me and the 2 gentlemen, collects evidence, takes photos. After some time of him being there, Cherry comes home and freaks out once the situation was explained to her and said,
"Oh my God, that could have been me."
"Yeah, thanks, Cherry. It's all about you. The next morning, I am called to identify the man they had in custody. I pointed him out. I go into a little room, and the officer pulls out an evidence bag. He asks me if the items were mine. They were. They were my underwear and photos taken of my home. The officer informed me that the intruder had been stalking me for some time now. He estimates 3 months. He had made a nest outside our home on top of a hill that overlooked into our living room and kitchen. He's a known sex offender and drug dealer. He then told me how lucky I was to get out practically unharmed. Others weren't so lucky. 3. When I was in high school, I was like 16, I had a friend, Lisa, and a second friend, Zoe. Lisa had like a lot of money, and her huge house was located right next to our high school. So every time we had a break or anything, the three of us would go there, and we also would have a lot of sleepovers at her house. It was this huge rich people house, so it was awesome to stay there. One day, we decided to spend the night there. The three of us, plus Lisa's little sister, Anna. Their mother was gone for the night. We decided to put on some PJs and watch scary movies for hours. Anna went to bed before us three, and we just stayed in the living room watching TV. At one point, the alarm goes on. It happens sometimes. So Lisa just went to turn it off, and that was it. Then like 10 minutes later, the alarm goes off again, and it scared us because it's not supposed to. Technically, the alarm was made to ring only when humans come by, because the house was located in the middle of the forest. So we all knew that sometimes animals would come by the house, happened before. So when the alarm was installed, it was calibrated for humans only. And it was the second time it rang. We started to get a little bit scared, so we went upstairs, opened the windows to look at the garden all around the house, and nothing. We even went on the balcony in the middle of the night. Nothing. I was alone on the balcony at some point, and the alarm went on again, and the automatic lights around the swimming pool turned on. That meant something was around the pool, and I was just above it. I got so scared I got on my knees and stayed there until my friend deactivated the alarm and the lights, and I ran inside the house. At this point, we were really, really scared, and started thinking about what it could be. If it has to be a human, all our lights were on, so they knew where we were. We turned all the lights off, and all four of us went hiding downstairs in the kitchen. Without our phones, I don't even know why not even one of us thought about taking at least one phone. So we were there, lights off, scared in a huge house, with windows everywhere we could look. The alarm went berserk again. Anna screamed. Lisa took her with her, reassuring her while walking to shut the alarm off. Like, turn it off once and for all. So I was in the kitchen with Zoe only, and we were just looking all around us. The alarm was upstairs, so the two girls were far from us. At some point, we heard footsteps right beside us. Like right on the other side of the wall in the garden. It was fast, not scared, just fast. Like that person knew where they were going, so we just froze, waiting in the dark, and jumped when something, well, someone, it was obvious, walked by the door and window right in front of us. He, I think it was a he, had a light, but it was another light that followed us to see his silhouette. So there were at least two, running around the house for about at least 20-30 minutes. But this door was, like I said, a windowed door. There were Venetian blinds on it. They were not closed, of course. We were still not moving, and the girls upstairs were so scared that they stayed there. At least that's what they told us. Suddenly, one voice, then a second one. I wasn't able to understand anything, but I heard it. And Zoe and I were blinded by a sudden light in our faces. We were literally unable to move, scream, or talk. We were just frozen in fear. The light stayed there. Someone was seeing us through the blinds. Someone was watching us be scared and was just staying there. Suddenly, we heard a hard sound on the front door, which was closed. Zoe didn't move at all, but I Don't know what possessed me. It just woke me up, and I crawled to the door in front of me, the back door, closed the blinds, and just held the door in place in case the guy on the other side tried to force it. Honestly, I'm small and thin. My little body was useless there, but I did it anyway. The one at the front door was still trying to enter, Zoe still not moving, the two girls upstairs doing I don't know what, and one just a glass window away from me, starting to hit it, trying to force it. It was closed, but I just grabbed the handle and hung in there for a while. He was just hitting and trying to open the door. All this lasted hours in my head, but I believe it was only a few seconds. At one point, the hits at the front door stopped. A few seconds later, the other one in front of me stopped as well. Then the lights just moved fast everywhere. The alarm did nothing, so it was disabled as we wanted, and there was nothing. Zoe and I slept in the kitchen, and the two sisters upstairs. Nothing happened at all. It was over. The next day, Lisa and Anna's mom came back home. We told her everything, got a bit yelled at because we didn't call the cops. I took it wrong at the time, but I understand now why she got upset. She called the cops, who went to see the house and just discovered footsteps all around the house, some muddy footprints and marks on the front door. They said they must have kicked the door, and that was it. They told us it must have been some guys who were just doing some recognition. You know, when they just walk around the houses to see how to rob it. It was common in this area. There were a lot of really big and beautiful houses filled with expensive things. The only thing I will never be able to explain is why they started being so aggressive. Originally, they were just walking around the house. But I think that if they were trying to see something, or just look things up, they would have left when they realized we were inside. Or at least, when that guy saw us in the kitchen. Well, they didn't. The moment they saw us in the kitchen, they didn't see the two sisters. They started being aggressive and trying to force the doors to enter the house where we were. I don't know if they really wanted to rob the house. I never will, and honestly, I don't want to know. I didn't spend any more nights at this house. I got so scared they would come back again. I couldn't sleep there. Lisa got a bit mad, like she didn't understand. But from what she told Zoe and I, she didn't see them. She just stayed upstairs with her sister. I understand it. But I wasn't able to stand the fact that she couldn't understand how scared I was as well. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 550. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then please do like and subscribe. You could also comment. I'm not going to judge you if you don't, but it'd be nice if you did, just saying. Well, let's be honest, nobody's ever just saying, they always mean something. Because if you aren't just saying, you're effectively blowing hot air, and what a waste of time that is, eh? The only time you should be blowing hot air is if you have like an oven with a fan in it and you're baking cakes. That's good. Hot air good for cakes. Or a balloon. Do people still use hot air balloons? I think we still have blimps. Sorry, how did I get here? Whatever. Anyway, we're talking about blimps now, apparently. I seem to recall seeing something about some rich person always had a lot of money and time on their hands, wanted to build a massive luxury blimp because those are still popular. I don't know what his name is, but we'll call him Mr. Blimpy. Mr. Blimpy's Blimpalicious Blimp. I'm concerned, as I'm about to head on to editing this video, I'm getting distracted by Paul Hollywood, someone I'm not really a fan of. I don't dislike him, I'm just not a fan of him, if that makes sense. Neutral, I think is the word. But he's doing a video I came across where he's baking bread, or rather he's looking at people while they're baking bread, which is almost as good. It's the kind of thing, you go down rabbit holes on YouTube. You end up watching one thing after another. So I'll try to avoid the bread rabbit hole. Make it just this one video. Although for the past week or so, maybe a bit more than that, I've went down the Disney or the theme park rabbit hole, looking at various channels like the defunct Disney, I'm probably going to get all these names wrong. So let's look at my history and see who I've been looking at. I've also been watching a lot of cruising videos. It's like I will never go on a cruise just because you're in a confined space with a whole bunch of strangers for a week or two or however long the cruise is. They're so expensive. And I'd honestly just want to get the most luxurious cabin I could and spend all my time in that. But, I can do that at home. I.e. just, surround myself with comfort and snacks and things. So unless I could get on a cruise without other people on it, it's not really going to be worth it for me. But when I wasn't looking at the cruise videos, I was looking at Disney videos, and I was, there we are. FastPass Facts, I looked at some stuff they did. And what was that other one? Is it TP something? Oh, alright, there we are. There was Poseidon Entertainment. They did an interesting one. Disney Dan. His stuff was mostly okay. A couple of things I watched rubbed me the wrong way, but well put together. Disney Parks Addict. The video's over, by the way. You can go if you want. I'm just rambling on. I kind of got stuck on... Offhand Disney, that was one of them. I kind of got stuck in the Haunted Manor. Very enamored of the idea. Again, I have no interest in Disney. Oh, Parallel Disney, that was quite good. It compares the different attractions in parks all over the world. And TPM vids, that's the one I've been watching most of. They're very well put together. So yeah, again, Disney, I'll probably never go to a Disney theme park. Again, too many people. Unless they'd be willing to shut it down and just let me have a wander through myself. Although, as I'm given to understand, I could probably build my own haunted mansion for what it would cost to shut down Disney for a day. Okay, and with that nonsense, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.